on the videos, welcome. And we're at part 3, which is very exciting. So we've done part 1, part 2, and now we're heading to our final session, which is part 3. So it's again looking at the cognitive functions, and this time looking at the decision-making functions. So let's see how we go with those. But first of all, I have a little advert for you to see. So for those of you who don't know about the conference in Oxford, please join us if you can. It will be absolutely amazing. We have got 19 superb speakers. If you are interested in typology and getting to understand this a lot more, then we're just so proud of what we've put together. So there will be a room full of no more than 100. We're hoping to get 100 people. And the event will just be an experience like no other. If you've never been to a type conference before, you have a room full of people who all understand this language, and it's just fascinating. And you can also talk to our speakers who are literally experts in their field from around the world. So we would welcome you hugely to come to that if you can. So that's 25 and 26 September, and all of the details are online should you want to go and have a look at them. So today we have the cognitive functions and the judging functions: extroverted thinking, introverted thinking, and extroverted feeling and introverted feeling. And yet again, we will be looking at what does each function look like, what does each function feel like, and how can I practice using each of these decision-making functions. But we'll do a little bit of a recap. So we had the extroverted sensing, introverted intuiting, extroverted intuiting, and introverted intuiting as our 4 functions. And as we said before, this all goes on in our heads all of the time, but we are going to have a preferred one of these functions that we go to, especially if we're stressed. Our brain has all sorts of different wiring. We have motorways, we have country roads, we have A roads, B roads, and when we are under stress, then we tend to go to whichever one is our motorway neural network, which tends to be the one we use more often, which tends to be the one that's in on our type code. But I did have a think, and I was particularly thinking about you, Alex, because I came up with another. Sorry, I can't stop these whirring around. Haha! I have another image for you for extroverted sensing. So the image that I had before of the youngsters jumping around and playing in the puddles, it's pretty good. You know, it's not a terrible graphic, because that is what people do. And particularly those people who have extroverted sensing as a dominant function. So, and also, Alex, for you, particularly in classrooms, you will literally kind of see them bouncing off the walls. They will just need to move. They need to have that energy. But if you have, if this is a function within your type code, but you have a preference for introversion as you do, then it's a little bit more behind the scenes. And so I found this beautiful graphic, which I just love. And we can see this gorgeous animal here. I imagine it's a fox. I think it's a fox. But he's sitting in this meadow, which is, sorry, hold on a sec. Let me just play it from here. And can you see, he's got these amazing ears. His eyes are looking. His nose is sniffing. He's waiting to do something, and he's taking in and absorbing his whole environment in a real way. And then he's going to do something. So he's got all of this information that he's taking in, and then he's probably aiming to pounce on something. You know, one thing, he's probably in sort of pre-hunting mode. And this is, I think, the way extroverted sensors kind of attune. Like they see their senses are heightened, they attune to what's going on around them. And then that information has an action at the end of it, which is to go and do something with it. So extroverted sensing, I think they both images work, but I do kind of like this one. What do you think, Alex?
Yeah, it's beautiful.
I don't know that I have anything intelligent to say about it, but yeah.
No, I think it's just something to sort of think about. And the other thing I think is that the extroverted perceiving functions are a whole lot more like each other than if you think of extroverted sensing and introverted sensing, which are miles apart. So my lovely Foxy here is really just absorbing the real. Whereas when you've got somebody with extroverted intuiting, it's also taking in information, but from this sort of chain of possibilities and ideas and connecting thoughts. And then you've got the introverted functions, which is this being introspective, but going introspective back into what I've already known. And then you've got introverted intuiting, which is that introspection, but going kind of forward. But it's got that same sort of give me a bit of quiet space and I'll work it out. So they are actually more akin to each other than the opposites of that same function. So extroverted sensing and extroverted intuiting are more alike than extroverted sensing and introverted sensing. And extroverted intuiting and introverted intuiting. Would you agree, Nathan?
Yes.
Yeah. So sometimes, you know, as an ISFP stroke INFP, you can think, well, I'm not too sure which one is more like me, but I'm definitely an extroverted intuiting person. And then as you go through life and you watch yourself, you will work out which one of these is something that is your go-to, especially when you're stressed. So hopefully that's a little bit helpful. Does anyone else have any comments on that my new little fox, who I'm quite pleased with it. So,
I think the added thing about both that image and the one jumping in the puddles is, for me, culminating in an action.
yeah,
It's quite useful.
Yeah, that SP, you'll see them just needing to often just physically move. Another example I've got of a lovely ISFP who I actually do quite a lot of work with. I wrote a set of cards, some coaching cards called the Learning Puzzle, and I wrote them with somebody who had ISFP preferences, and she was also a teacher, Alex. And what she used to do, she was a teacher of students with learning difficulties. She did that for decades. And she used to sit in the middle of her classroom, and she had multiple age ranges all around her. And she could just see and sense what each of the children around her needed. And then she gently provided it. So it has much more of an under the radar experience and feeling than extroverted sensing. It was like, come on, everybody, we're up, we're jumping, we're going to be doing some star jumps any moment now. You know, it's not that, but she was quietly just assessing her environment, assessing each children that she had around her, and just unfurling activities and things for them to do right now.
I was
looking after a dog this weekend who had been kept in a cage for as a puppy. She's a puppy, and I managed to have it so that the dog didn't need to be in the cage anymore, and the dog parents were really surprised that I'd managed to kind of do that just over a weekend, and it felt like that kind of intuiting what the dog needs and kind of responding to its
and also unsurprisingly for me, ISFPs are the known type to adore work with animals. Yeah, absolutely. They are also the known type to be performers on stage, musical performers.
Really?
Strangely. Yeah. David Bowie was definitely an ISFP. Who else is the other? Elvis Presley, almost certainly an ISFP, but they're not the only ones. There are a lot of ISFPs.
How does that figure?
You'll find a lot of performers are introverts. They find that they can do their thing on a stage. All introverts can do performing. Watch them when they come off. Yeah.
Wow.
An extrovert can come off a stage and just go, I'm here all week, you know. They get so energized from it. Somebody with a preference for introversion will absolutely do their bit, do their thing. And at the end of it, they go, I'm done here. Thank you very much.
I've worked with a
And
lot of actors, so that's quite interesting.
yeah, lots of actors with ISFP preferences. Okay, so all interesting thoughts. So when we come to thinking or the feeling functions, one of the thinking or feeling functions will either be dominant or auxiliary. So I think for this group here, Alex, Nathan, and I all have thinking functions as a dominant function, and for Sandra, Claire, and Jonathan, it will be an auxiliary function. But let's go into that. So just to review, if you overemphasize your judging function, for example, under stress, you may really rely too heavily on it and resist or delay gathering more information before you come to a decision. So that is the meaning of having a dominant decision-making function. Is it could be that that decision-making happens too quickly without getting more information in. And it's the opposite for those who have a dominant perceiving function. Instead of making a decision, you keep on and on getting information in, to the, sometimes to the detriment of actually making a decision, for sure. So we have our 8 signs of psychological type living in the octagon, and we're going to be doing the thinking and the feeling functions today. So TE, extroverted thinking; TI, introverted thinking; FE, extroverted feeling; and FI, introverted feeling. And as Dario, I love this Dario slide, quite rightly said, the brain is like an orchestra that usually plays its favorite songs. Notice that some of the musicians are playing in sync, others are doing their own thing, and a few are asleep, much like our brains on a good day. So remember, this type is not about what you can do, it's what you can't stop doing. That's an important factor. And we have our superpowers, especially when you meet somebody for the first time and you have no idea what their type is, which is majority of people, let's face it. They will have a superpower, and it will be invisible to you until you start looking and watching for it, or until they tell you what their type code is if you happen to be working in an environment. But just observation can help you understand more about that. So it is always the case that when looking at a 4-letter type code, these are the judging functions that will be most accessible to you. So if you have extroverted thinking, T and J will be in your type code. If you have introverted thinking, T and P will be in your type code. Extroverted feeling, as you do, Jonathan, F and J, and introverted feeling, as quite a few of you do, F and P. And note, it is not directly related to whether someone is an extrovert or an introvert, just as we had last week. So for example, an ESTJ and an ISTJ both prefer TE because they both have TJ in their code. The same for all the others. ENTP and INTP both prefer TI. ESFJ and ISFJ both prefer FE. They're both FJs. And ENFP and INFP both prefer FI because they're both FPs. Yeah. So I thought of another couple of words that might be better than extroverted and introverted, which is extrinsic and intrinsic. That might float your boat a little bit more. So it could be said that for each each function, sensing, intuiting, thinking, and feeling, has both an extrinsic or extroverted side and an intrinsic or introverted side. So while extrinsic motivations come from external rewards, intrinsic motivations come from internal desires. There we go. Remember our plane simulator, because if we don't practice these, then we're likely to not be able to use them. So at the end, as you know, I'll be giving you some activities to do so that you can see what they are and see how to practice them. But getting in that simulator and trying it when you're not stressed is the best way to try and use them, because when you're stressed, then as we've said before, you're likely to go to the ones that you know best. So I'm going to send you a lot of, show you a lot of slides again, as I did last week, which, if you remember, come from a set of coaching cards called the Type Trilogy, which myself and Susan Nash put together quite a few years ago now, but a card set resource that is helpful if you are working in this space, but it's certainly not a sales pitch. You can get as much of those cards as you wish from me in soft copy form. So let's take a look at each of these 4 cards: extroverted thinking, TE, introverted thinking, TI, extroverted feeling, and introverted feeling. There we go. So we're going to be doing the thinking preferences first. So TJ and TP, or extroverted thinking, introverted thinking, and then we will do, which are on the outside of the typical type table that is used in most qualification programs, and then the inside 2 letters after that. So let me ask you to just cast your eyes over these 2 sets of cards and see, just to orientate yourself to the differences between these things. So for those of you whose brains are awake, mine's a tiny bit asleep because it's only, oh, it's 8 o'clock now. I got up early. You will notice that critiquing is on both. And I think it was Nathan's brother. Nathan was working with these cards, and he said, "There's a mistake. Critiquing is on both cards. This can't be, you know. Oh dear." He happened to be a TP, we think.
Yeah, INTP, so TI dominant.
So it's not surprising that he spotted this, to be quite fair. But it isn't a mistake, because I actually couldn't have critiquing not on both cards, because when you have a thinking preference, and I think I'm the only one here who does, it is almost impossible for us to look at something without noticing the flaw in it first. Almost impossible. And then we have to express that, and sometimes it doesn't land well, but the critiquing is innate. Nathan.
Yeah, if this helps, as you saw, Sue, when I gave my workshop last fall, and I did a sort of semantic analysis like this, where I presented words for each of these functions, and then that turned into a huge debate because people didn't agree with the categories that I pre-selected for these words. If there's anything I learned from that experience, is this: words can contain a lot of different meanings, right? If you look up a word, refining in the dictionary, you might find like 8 different definitions. And I think that, how to explain this? Each definition can bring that word into a different function. Yeah. So one word can actually apply for multiple functions depending on which definition or sub definition you're using or you're thinking of for that specific word. Yeah. So for instance, if you're critiquing like a schedule, you're using your TE, but if you're critiquing someone's like logical reasoning about why, A plus B equals C, then you're using your TI function. Yeah. It's like the context, adds the flavor to the word.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a lovely way of putting it. So I'm going to get quite excited because this is my dominant function. I do realize that not everybody is excited about extroverted thinking. However, you are currently in the presence of somebody who is very excited about extroverted thinking, because this is what I love doing. So this systemizing, this goal orientation, organizing, structuring, measuring, it just is somewhat joyful to me to be given a task. And it's not only just organizing other people, it's organizing my thoughts into some sort of a structure. So yes, it can be, making sure an organization is working and the people are doing what they're supposed to be doing, but it also just, what is my thought process and how can I get that in a certain order? So it's implementing effective plans using data from the environment. And my best way of describing this is it's rather like a Sudoku puzzle. Now, do we all know how to fill in a Sudoku puzzle? Is anybody confused about Sudoku puzzles?
I just can't do them. Just cannot do them. Yeah.
Cannot do. No problem. This is not a test on how well you do Sudoku puzzles. But for those of you who don't know Sudoku puzzles, what you have to do is you have to put the numbers 1 to 9 in each of the 9 boxes, and then you have to have 1 to 9 in each of the rows and 1 to 9 in each of the columns. So if I was to ask you, where would you put the next 3, for example, you will be using extroverted thinking to do so. So can anyone tell me where they would put another 3?
The top middle box, second row on the left.
Okay, top middle box, second one. Here we go. There we are. So what Nathan did was he used extroverted thinking because he knew that we're looking at this box here.
Yeah.
He could see that there was a 3 here, so it's not going to be either of those 2 boxes. And there's a 3 here, so it's not going to be either of those 3 boxes. So the only box left for him to put the 3 is here.
If I may, if this might help Claire, because you know we share the any function, yeah?
Yeah.
So any, I love to use analogies. I love Sudokus, by the way. So an analogy would be like, picture the 3, picture it being like, let's say you're crossing a road, a 3-lane high, not just a road, but a highway, yeah? And the other, you want to avoid the other 3s because the other 3s are like a car speeding down the highway. So
Okay.
the 3 at the top left corner, it can drive all the way across the top row, and if you put a 3 there, it will hit you and you'll die.
I get it.
And if you have a 3 in the third row on the bottom part of that top section, again, you'd get hit. So the only refuge, it's like in some boulevards they create a pedestrian island in the middle, so you don't have to. You can stop in the middle of the road and before waiting for more traffic to cross. It's like there's safety in that second row, yeah. And you can tell I'm adding my FI to it. I'm adding feeling to this.
I like that.
But the island is crowded because the 8 and the 6 are already there. So there's only one space left, and that's on the left side. So the 3 had to be there.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
So this is pure logic. Now I'm going to tell you a story about a couple, and one of them had she had a thinking preference and he had a feeling preference. And as a couple, they used to do this thing where she would put in a number and then she'd leave the Sudoku puzzle around the house somewhere, and then he would put in another number, and they pass it to and fro until they filled out the Sudoku box. Not everybody's cup of tea is an activity with their partner, but however, this was what they did. Anyway, it was all going very, very well until he, with a feeling preference, put a number in the box which she didn't get. And so she had to go back to her husband and say, how did you get this? Like, how did you get that number there? Because doesn't seem logical to me. And he said to her, it just felt right. Now, if you are trying to explain to somebody with a thinking preference something that you have done, it is not a good idea to use how you feel about it. Just saying. You're much better to use logic. It's, oh yeah, well, I did that because this 2 was there and that 2 was there, and then da 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 da. Are you with me?
Yeah.
Thinking and feeling. We are quite happy to listen to feeling for quite a long time, but there'll be a point in time where we've had enough, especially if it's being repeated over and over again with the same feeling. It's like, I've been here before. I don't need to know this again. Is there a new feeling that you can tell me about? Okay, good. If it's another one that gets us kept on going, possibly we can get a bit exhausted. Here's another image, which is a strange one. And this is a salad dressing, as if you didn't know. But if you put all of the ingredients into a salad dressing and you shake it up and then you put it down, what is it going to do?
Separate.
Separates. How much work does that salad dressing have to do in order to separate?
Not a lot.
No, it just does it. And that when you have this as a dominant function, this separation of information into something that makes sense to you is as natural as this salad dressing going, oh, here's a lot of ingredients. Whoop. So when you have your dominant function, it's ease of use. That's also important. But there is this sort of building a structure. So this is the way my strange little mind works. How am I going to get all of this information, but put it into something that is a workable solution, that is going to be sturdy? I'm going to play it again because I can actually look at this for quite a long time. Here we go again. systemizing. Where's the system? How can I build the system? So on a good day, when I'm feeling good, defining the effective use is defining cause and effect, using discussion to clarify thought, devising, critiquing, and fixing systems to expedite results, measuring progress, structuring personal environments. I'll leave you to read down to the bottom. But on a not so good day, I have got, sorry, my camera's in the way, seeing the world in black and white, ignoring or devaluating the shades of grey, being anxious with delayed decisions that can actually cause an anxiety, insensitive controlling without delegating because it's a hell of a lot faster for you to do something yourself, disregarding opinion until competence is proven, overly committed to procedure, mistrusting those who wing it. Like, seriously? You didn't have a plan? Wow. I'll let you read through the others. It's very likely that you will all have come across somebody with this as either the dominant preference or an auxiliary preference. Let me say another thing about the critiquing. When people with a thinking preference, whether it's TE or TI, when they start critiquing, you have to see it as a compliment, because that is often the way it is coming across. Because if it wasn't worth looking at, it wouldn't be worth getting their brains attached to it, and it wouldn't be worth having the experience of coming back to you and saying, well, I think you can improve it. So the desire to improve is far higher than you would think, because on the receiving end, you think, God, I've done all of this work and all they can do is nitpick it. Whereas actually what they are trying to do is help you improve. We are much misunderstood in our critiquing efforts. Claire, yeah.
Yeah, can I just say that was a really good learning point for me when I did my original training. You know, typically, you know, on a lot of these courses, they kind of say, right, that, you know, those with a T preference go one side of the room and the F. But it was really clearly illustrated with the T and the F. And they set the question, okay, how do the Fs feel when you're asked questions which seem to really challenge you? And we all felt pieces. We were all like, oh God, it's the worst. Oh, it feels awful. It feels really awful. We take it as a criticism. And then the T's on the other side just reacted and said, oh my goodness, no. We simply wouldn't bother asking you that question if we didn't think it was worthwhile.
Yeah.
I never forgot that.
You're right. You know, not only is it a compliment, but it can also be a sign of affection.
Ah.
Believe it or not.
Wow.
Yeah.
Really useful insight anyway.
Good. Yeah, good. I'm pleased. So, but on a bad day, this is my little meme for this. I'm not bossy. I just know what you should be doing. You know, and we can start what I call shoulding all over people. Yeah, you should do this. You should do that. Of course, you should. This one should. Yeah. And it's done in a very incompetent and sometimes slightly worrying way. So that's TE. Is everyone happy with TE? Extroverted thinking. So I happen to think that the difference between extroverted thinking and introverted thinking is the hardest one to get inside your mind, because many people that think that thinking is thinking. But this is a slight difference, but it's an important difference. So TI is all of these things: refining, organizing thoughts, reasoning, critiquing, internal focus, considering logic, perfecting a process. Okay, notice I'm not saying an outcome. I'm saying a process. They're not getting something done in the outside world. They're internalizing their thinking. So here is a young lad, and he has got a thought, and he's going to put it inside his again there. I can't remember what that is called. One of those things. What are they called? Does anyone help? Whatever those things are called. His little toy there.
A marble drop.
What is it called?
Maybe it's like a marble job. I bought
A
one for my
marble run.
niece.
Thank you, Nathan. It's a marble run. So he's putting the marble in the top, and then he's imagine the marble is a thought. Okay, so the thought goes in the top, and then it kind of winds its way round, and then it gets to the bottom. And what is he likely to do when it gets to the bottom? Put it back in at the top. So it just keeps on going. This thought keeps on trailing and trailing down. And then another thing he can do is he can change the structure, and he can move all the bits around so that you can put the same marble in, and it will take a different route. Okay, that's also interesting. And this is what introverted thinking is doing on an ongoing basis. And it can get wildly big with lots of thoughts going on and whizzing around that are all just going back inside and back inside. And this is where you can kind of lose yourself in this thought process. And so you've got all of these questions going into a funnel. And then, joy of joys, there's as many or more questions coming out at the end, which just keep on going through. I'm just questioning, I'm refining, I'm making sure I've got the right question, I'm making sure I've got the right definition for things. And their thinking is that as long as the process is right, then the outcome will be absolutely fine. You don't have to worry too much about the outcome. And so this is my introverted thinking. So remember, the extroverted thinking was that lovely building, structuring something on the outside. Well, this is introverted thinking. All of these questions coalescing into finding the ultimate truth and definition of something, which is just their joy. And they can do it over and over and over again. I did find somebody who was an ESTJ working with an INTP. So you're thinking, all good, both have a thinking preference. The INTP was the boss. The ESTJ was reporting to the INTP. And the ESTJ was struggling with the INTP. And she went to the INTP one day and said, why do you just ask so many questions? And he said to her, well, isn't that the best way to come to a solution? And she said, is that another question? So they can even answer a question with a question, which to them is completely fine. But to somebody who's a TJ, who's like, I need you to tell me what to do, not to question me about what's going on. Do you see what I mean? TE and TI having a bit of what we call in England, a bit of a Barney. Might not be an expression you use in Canada. Yes, Nathan.
Yeah, I think that with TI, and as I'm sure we'll see with FI, there's that sense of perfectionism. And whereas with me, I'm constantly trying to get to the bottom of that feeling. And why do I feel this? And why do I feel this? I find I witness with the TIs, especially the TI dominance, that the purity of logic. Like, is it true? Is it 100% true? Is there any reason why this thing could be not true? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. It's the bottom of the question. You're quite right, Nathan. As opposed to introverted feeling, it's trying to understand the feeling for sure. Yeah. Alex.
Is there any way that you could be so if I'm ISFP, I should have TE as my fourth function. Yeah. But I identify more with the TI than with the TE. But is there any chance that that's because the TE is in my kind of conscious awareness, whereas the TI is it that when the functions are in the lower in the stack, because they're out of consciousness in a way,
yeah, to a certain extent,
that they're easier.
Yeah, so you will always use all functions. And that, that introverted decision making is most likely to go towards the feeling side than the thinking side. But the thinking side is there for sure. Yeah. Let's get to the feeling one, and we'll come back to this, and we'll see how you go with the introverted feeling. So again, effective use and ineffective use, analyzing and checking for accuracy. Oh my goodness, playing devil's advocate. You will get people with TP preference who love this so much, they will tell you something that they don't even believe, just to kind of give you a little bit of a nudge, and just think, are they thinking? And so the enjoyment of debate is so in there. So that creating frameworks to perfect a process, I'll just let you read yourselves down to the bottom. And the ineffective use, sorry, I've got a camera in front of my screen, so I'm going like this. Perpetually revisiting an issue but failing to come to a decision. Analysis paralysis. I'm doing all of this thinking and it's just going nowhere. You know, instead of it being a joyful, oh, all these questions are going in and I'm putting it through again. It's just like nothing is coming right. I'm not actually getting to that final point. Prolonging
Sue?
unproductive thinking. Yes.
I just have a question. I'm married to an INTP. And when I'm
Mhm.
looking at the effective use, the only one that doesn't seem really clear to me is the first one on analyzing and checking for accuracy.
Mhm.
How does that come through? Like, how does that come through? How would I see that in him? Is this going
You'll
on in his
see,
head then?
yeah, but you will see it very specifically in something that he believes he's got expertise in.
Okay.
So if it's not something that he's interested in or that he feels he needs to have mastery of, then it won't exist. But it
Okay.
will exist on something where he believes he either has or wants expertise.
That makes sense. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. So whatever his work is, whatever his hobby is, then it will be to the nth degree.
Yeah.
But anything else, nah, not really. Thank you for that question. So here's my little meme. I overthink to the point where I'm thinking about not overthinking. Just gotta, you know, and they do tend to, Sandra, they can go in their cave to do this thinking. They will usually have a man cave, a man shed, or something or other where they go to so that this thinking can take place. So two different ways of experiencing thinking. The Sudoku puzzle way, that extroverted thinking, T and J, system building, as opposed to T and P, analyzing. The outcome isn't as necessary as getting the process right. So the T and J, outcome oriented, making stuff happen. And then the TP, introspective, getting a clear understanding. Two very different ways of using thinking. Is that helpful? Cool. Any questions? And then we'll get on to some of these activities, which you can do at any time. So activities to apply extroverted thinking, you've got these in the notes that I sent you last week. So for those of you that are feeling preference, I want you to go down this list and I want you to stop when you get to the one that you wouldn't really think of doing, given that we all have to use extroverted thinking to a certain time. Any thoughts?
Yeah, my first reaction is not what I expected, because I think for myself as an ENFP, extroverted thinking is my tertiary.
Yeah.
And I would have thought that I was relatively okay with that for a reason I'll say in a minute. But
Yeah.
I'm not looking at those activities. I get stuck on the first one. Whereas
okay.
I can do most of what's going on in introverted thinking, which really surprises me.
Interesting. Mm.
So
Sarah, I feel the same way as an ENFP.
Right.
I was looking at extroverted
Oh.
thinking, and it's like I don't want to even go there.
No.
There's some on the introverted side that I like.
Mm-hmm. I tell you what happens with extroverted thinking for most of the ENFPs and let me just talk about ENFPs first. It's in the third, and the third position, which is kind of the playful child. And so you do extroverted thinking as a slightly fun thing that you don't really take all that seriously. So somebody with ENFP preferences could just wake up one morning and just go, I'm going to clear out all my kitchen cupboards and have a sort of a fun time doing it.
Yeah.
But it's not where the work happens. Like as somebody with an extroverted thinking job, the work happens on the extroverted thinking side. So it's what importance are you attaching to it? And for Sandra, for you as an ENFP2, yes, you can do those things, but there's not necessarily, it can guide you in some way, but it's not sort of, well, this is what I need to do in order to be, to achieve. The introverted thinking, remember you've got FI and TI. I'm just thinking that you're in that space of internally decision making. So it might feel more familiar to you.
Right.
Okay.
Might do.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's not what I would have expected, but a comment I was going to make, you know how, when you're looking at your best fit type, you'll say to people, look, you may be quite influenced by the environments that you happen to have been in, your learnt environment. So, for example, I worked in healthcare for many, many years.
Yeah.
I'm glad I did, because it was actually completely not my natural thing.
Yeah.
And starting off working in the healthcare environment meant that I had to work in a structured way. It is very much more I don't know, TP or TJ environment over here in the healthcare service. But if I hadn't done that, I think I might have been quite dysfunctional overall. So I would say that I learned to prioritize brilliantly.
Yeah.
I'm a really good prioritizer. So I would have thought the extroverted thinking would have been okay. I quite like that, all the time management stuff. So, but then when I left the healthcare environment, it was the biggest relief to me.
Sure.
So,
because you're going to go somewhere where you can use your dominant function.
Yeah.
So you probably were not using a lot of extroverted intuiting.
Nope.
Nobody gave you the capacity to think outside the
Nope.
square, to look at a process, change it, move it, shift it. It was just too SI.
Absolutely.
Too sensing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the two that I was thinking of looking at is consider an issue that has been bothering you. State what you want to happen in 3 bullet points. As opposed to, whilst in a meeting, sit back and listen, internally synthesize everyone's input, make a single statement that sums it up. If you're working with somebody with introverted thinking dominant, then you will notice them sitting back and listening a lot and coming up with something that is just the best question anyone could have asked. But you've got to give them the space to move forward and ask that question. It's a mistake to discount them. And this is also what I sent you because, Jonathan, you mentioned last week that you'd come across questions that each of the different functions ask. And so these are all of the questions for extroverted thinking. All of these activities are the same as you've got, and this is just different names that have been given to extroverted thinking over the time. But what's the plan? Can it be evolved to be more efficient? Are we progressing towards a goal? Who else needed to make this work? Is this optimal structure within which we can succeed? And are there constraints that influence effectiveness? All of those are natural questions that comes to mind. And for introverted thinking, have we done enough thinking? Is this illogical, irrational reason? What's the best question to ask? Have I asked enough questions to tease out all the flaws? When there is new data, how will this impact the system? What needs investigating to keep myself informed? So they're not a million miles away from each other, but they are very different. And the arguments that you can have between TE and TI employees or people you know will often be around this, you know, what I was saying to you before. What needs to be done? Have we asked enough? Any other thoughts before we go on to the feeling preferences?
Just one small question, Sue. I have a friend who said he didn't know what his superpower was. He's an extremely successful businessman, but he said for years he didn't know what his superpower was. And he said then one day he realized it was walking into a new situation and being able to tell straight away what the one or two flaws in the system were and how the whole thing could be made better. Is that TI or TE?
It sounds more TE to me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was such a specific.
The structure is wrong. You replace that structure with this structure.
Yeah.
But the process, the questions he's got to ask to get that build, that, you know, to get that different build is TI. So he'll be using both.
Yeah.
But then how he communicates it can also be whether or not that's TE or TI. So
I see.
So the TI, you know, I think I mentioned to you last week, if you've got a whole lot of INTPs working together, which is very common in science environments, then they all come to their own decisions and don't talk about it. They just don't say anything to each other. They're just in their own silos saying, well, he's wrong and he's wrong and she's wrong. But never mind about that because I'm right and I'm going to do it this way. Whereas the TE will literally be absolutely driven to change the structure.
Yeah, that really helps.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so for all of us, we have TI or TE in different places. I think I've covered everybody here, except for ISFP, but it's the same as INFP for you down at the bottom. So TE dominant for me, yay. Third place for ENFPs, fourth for INFPs, and for you, Jonathan, you're TI in that third position. And Richard, if you ever watch this, then you are TE in the second position as the support actor. Okay, are we happy to go on to feeling? Okay, not doing too badly. I have got half an hour to do this one, but she's all good. I'll get to the end. Jonathan, I know that you have to disappear, but please stay as long as you can. So extroverted feeling and
I have to go now, so sorry.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Well, I might use you as an example because you're our only FJ. As you hear the recording, you might hear me talking about
No problem.
I
Go
hope
ahead.
that's all right.
Yeah.
All right. Good. Thanks, Jonathan. So we have extroverted feeling and introverted feeling. So we've got harmonizing and valuing. And again, two similar but different processes. And the F's get sort of bundled together, but when you understand them, they are actually quite different. So if you scan your eyes over those two sets of cards, you'll just orientate yourself to the differences. Okay, so these are the feeling preference. So it's the middle two columns of the standard type code. So let's do harmonizing, evaluating desirability by considering the feelings and emotions of those involved. It's outward looking. How can I help? What is going on outside? What is my intentions globally and locally to see what I can do to create harmony? And in the workshops that I've done, I've often put groups into different corners, you know, all of the 8 functions. I've been in workshops that are large enough to do that. And then I asked the people who were on the workshop to draw their dominant function. And as I've asked those with extroverted feeling to draw their dominant function, they have never, ever drawn anything other than this, ever. And so it's holding hands, there's usually hearts around. There's something about let me care for you. Let me see what you need, okay? And this harmonizing, it kind of sits within you, and this is a murmuration of starlings. And so these birds are they're sort of coordinating in this unspoken way. They would like the world where everybody cooperates and coordinates. And if one of these little thousands of birds suddenly decides to go off and head north or south or to go and do something else, there is a drive to bring that person back into the fold. Bring that, come on, join us, let's all work together. So that collaboration is important. And so this harmonizing, you'll see that I'm swapping between the American spelling and the English spelling, harmonizing with an S for England. So effective use, creating and maintaining harmonious relationships, providing help and support, prioritizing according to the impact on others, encouraging consensus. And I'll let you read down to the bottom. But on a bad day, it looks like self-sacrificing, being exhausted supporting others' needs, neglecting your own physical and emotional needs, aiming to please everybody all of the time, which is impossible. Providing help when it's not wanted. So for those who I've coached who have extroverted feeling preferences, especially the dominant ones, ESFJ and ENFJ, the number of times I have said to somebody, you do not need to be involved in everything. And they're like, really? No, you do not. It is not essential. Gandhi said, the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others. This is a wonderful thing. I suspect he was probably an INFJ. However, you are not required to set yourself on fire to keep other people warm. Not required. You need to have some self-help. You need to make sure that you are okay. So extroverted feeling, we don't have Jonathan here, but I'm sure we have all met people with extroverted feeling preferences. They cannot help themselves to be involved in the community. We need these people. Oh my goodness, we need these people. And for those of you with FP, which is all of you actually, with introverted feeling, you're thinking, yes, I know, but I do that. I do a lot of that. But have a look at introverted feeling and see how different it might feel. Because I think I do extroverted feeling, but I've confused friendly with extroverted feeling. Like the F does not stand for friendly in this respect. We are all, I think I'm a friendly person and I don't have extroverted feeling anywhere near in my top functions. So let's just take a look at introverted feeling, which for all of you might feel a little bit more familiar to you. So all of these things are important to introverted feeling. With Nathan, you're the only one that has this as a dominant function. And what Jung says is that nobody can really understand the true depths of this function, especially for somebody who has it as a dominant function. Yeah, people kind of won't get how strongly you feel about something.
I mean, if I may, 80 years is not enough time. Average lifetime span.
Okay,
How about 800?
I'll wait till I'm 80 and I'll understand you, Nathan. So it's like this constant. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say,
Could you say more about assessing relationships and like how that's different to FE or
Sure. Yes. Those can I come back to that question, Alex? Can you hold me to that and I'll come back to that? So
Great,
it's
thanks.
like having this tuning fork that is in your brain all of the time, going, does this feel right? Does this sound right? Is this right? Is this attaching my values? Is my purpose? Is my mission being accomplished by doing this? And rather like this lovely young girl here, it is, how does this sound to me? How does this feel to me? Not how am I going to help everybody else through it, but how does it feel to me? We have Mary joining us, so I think she might have got the wrong timing. Sorry, hold on a sec. Mary, is she there?
Yeah, I'm there.
Mary,
Hello.
hello, my friend. I think thank you for joining it. I think you may have thought that this started an hour earlier. No, you thought it started now. It started an hour earlier because the UK changed their clocks.
Oh, okay.
So I'm sorry I didn't make that more clear, but you're very welcome now, and thank you for joining
thank you.
us. And we are just doing extroverted feeling. So hurrah! You have
Hurrah!
joined at the right moment. So actually we've done extroverted feeling. We're comparing it to introverted feeling. So we'll come back to extroverted feeling, but you are our introverted feeling person. For Mary, I'm just going to go back a bit. Except it's not deciding, it's deciding it doesn't want to go back. Let me come back to extroverted feeling, Mary. For some reason, my slide, oh, here we go. So what I was saying, Mary, is extroverted feeling is like this constant desire to harmonize, to just make sure that everybody else is okay. This is a murmuration of starlings. How can I make sure that people are collaborating, they're happy? And if any one of these beautiful birds goes off in one direction, there will be a driven desire to make sure they come back into the fold. How can I help you? And we just went through the effective use and ineffective use of all of those functions. And the ineffective use is just getting overwhelmed with providing other people with too much support. So Gandhi said the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others. But if you have extroverted feeling in either that top or second function, you are not required to set yourself on fire to keep other people warm. So that desire can just be exhausting from time to time. So introverted feeling is like this tuning fork. It's internal. Does it sound right to me? Which is where we got to here. Does it sound right? Does it feel right internally? Introverted feeling. Now, this is a very surprising image. I had a large group of people, and there was such a big group that they had dominant introverted feelings. I had to divide them into two groups. And the task that they had was to draw an image or a picture of what they felt the introverted feeling was. And both sets, as far as I know, without looking at the other group, drew a picture of a sword. And it was a beautiful sword. They made sure it was a really lovely sword. And so I said, oh, explain this to me, because this is very interesting. And they said, oh, this is not a sword that sort of, slashes and kills and maims people. This is a sword that defends and protects. Oh my goodness. If you have introverted feeling anywhere close to your top functions, you will defend somebody else. That sense of injustice is massive. You cannot let go of a sense of injustice. It just sits in you like some toxic thing. And this is also a lovely image because this is, I'm pretty sure this is Mount Taranaki, which is in New Zealand. And it's this beautiful volcano. It looks absolutely gorgeous and peaceful on the outside, but we all know what's on the inside of a volcano. And sometimes it can blow, and it's quite a surprise to the people who are around you. But there's this sort of rumbling, like the rumbling in your tummy thing that goes on quite a lot of your time. It's just like, oh, I've got this thing going on. This is rumbling around. This is important to me. And so introverted feeling is not, can I help you? Is, am I tuned into the right channel? So this is my lovely radio station. I'm trying to tune in. I'm tuning in here. Oh, I can suddenly hear some noise. Oh, I can hear some music. Oh, this sounds good. Oh, that sounds bad. I admit this is an old-fashioned radio. We're not used to these anymore. But if you remember those radios where you can just, you know, it goes crackle, crackle, crackle. And then all of a sudden you can hear somebody talking. This is what introverted is feeling is doing, whether they're in a meeting, whether they're sitting around a table, whether they're just communicating with a loved one. This is what's happening. And there's sort of this inner heart just beating there. Bum, bum, bum. We all have an inner heart. Mine is on the inside of my body. I'm sure yours is too. And it's what's going on inside. And so, on a good day, it's a fantastic function. They're all pretty darn good. But you're making decisions based on personal values, feeling secure within one's beliefs, cultivating inner harmony. And I'll let you read down to the bottom. So that's on a good day. And on a bad day, it is being overprotective of personal emotions, concealing feelings to a point where others find it difficult to get to know you because they're going to stay inside, dismissing others' beliefs if in conflict with your own, being stubborn when a personal value system is upset. All of the introverted functions have cause to make us stubborn. Introverted sensing will make us stubborn because this is not my memory. I don't have a memory of this. I don't think it's going to work. I am stubbornly going to insist that we only do something that I've done before. Extroverted intuiting is stubborn. Introverted intuiting is stubborn because it can see the vision and they can see where it's going. And they can quietly just disagree with a different direction. Introverted thinking is stubborn because it's not the question of the moment. Like, what is the accuracy and the truth? I know it. I know what I'm doing. And I'm just going to hold on to this thought process that I've got. But introverted feeling is stubborn because of this sense of justice. If you are feeling a sense of injustice, then nothing is going to push you to do something that doesn't fit with your values. I'd like to get your comments in a minute, but I'll get to the end first. I love this. There is a tantrum brewing in me, the likes of which this house has never seen. But all the while, it's got this sort of cute thing looking on the outside. It's like you would never know the heat that is inside. You would never know. But you cannot become a peacemaker without communicating. Somehow or other, you need to get that inner feeling out in a in a reasonable communication to somebody. So, extroverted feeling, let me help you, which we all want to do from time to time. Introverted feeling, what's right to me? And so we have 4 people with introverted feeling, Mary, in that either dominant or auxiliary function. So unmute and please let me know any thoughts that you have about this function that I know will be important to you.
So you mentioned earlier in the previous slide about, the need to, when we're expressing our FI, to not overdo it and to calmly communicate what we're feeling.
Mhm.
And I think it takes 2 to tango. And I think I agree with that in principle, but there's also something to be said about non-FIs and can they even handle FI? Yeah. And I think that in some ways, on a societal level, FI to me is like the final frontier on a societal level. And that if you were to average out where we've developed on all the functions, and maybe this is my bias, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I think that we have a lot of work to do to develop FI collectively. And and our FI is so bad collectively that anytime we really want to talk about FI matters, people think, oh, just go speak to a therapist about it. It's been relegated to this little segment of society instead of being allowed to flourish and be part of conversations in organizations, in companies, at the Christmas dinner party with your friends and family, in the news, even, in any space, really. Like, why can't we say what we truly feel, and why can't people handle everyone else's truths? Yeah, is what comes to mind, because I don't feel like most people can, and it's really unfortunate. So
thank you, Nathan. There is a guy called Simon Sinek, who you might have heard about or come across. I listened to his podcast, and that he talks about finding your why, and this is like a permanent mission for people with FI. And they're like, why isn't everybody doing this? I don't get it. Why is nobody trying to find their why? They're too busy. And as you say, as soon as they do try and find their why, it's in the therapy room. But not everybody has introverted feeling or wants to get there. If you look at Maslow and his pyramid, the top of the pyramid is self-actualization. And you think, well, surely everybody must be wanting to get there. No, not really. Not everybody is trying to reach there, but most people with FI are. Any other thoughts? Claire,
yeah, just a small one. It's really interesting. I mean, I'm almost laughing at some of the FI stuff because I just think, yeah. But it's interesting because when I used to sort of come out of all my when I did the Myers-Briggs inventory myself, it always came out as INFP, but I don't think I am. I think I'm an ENFP, but I'm really quite midline on the E and the I. So, and I know it's not exactly a continuum, but
So the difference between INFP and ENFP is that, and the reason why many INFPs think that they are ENFPs is because they have this beautiful combination of being playful and intense. And so other people will experience an INFP as an ENFP, because they kind of, go in and out of this playfulness. And so they can be at a party and it's like, you will see an INFP having a great time at a party. But they're not there for all that long. They sort of disappear after a while. And so they go back into that space of introverted feeling. They come out to play, but then they go back very readily. And with ENFPs, it's the other way around. They're somewhat out to play quite a lot of the time. And then they will go back to sort of intensity. But their sort of mainstay is sort of out in that sort of more sort of extroverted, intuiting space.
I don't think I'm ever going to resolve this one, actually.
No, and neither do you have to.
Right.
But one of the things is, where do I go to first? Are there times when I perceive more and don't make a decision, or do I come to an immediate decision? Like INFPs may come to an immediate decision about somebody they meet for the first time, and they make an evaluation of that person, and it can't change. Like, it will take a heck of a lot for you to change that decision on something. So which one are you more likely to do? Hold up, like, get to your decision first, or keep finding more possibilities? So that's your question.
That's really helpful. Thank you.
You don't have to decide.
Yeah.
It's actually, INFP or ENFP. Congratulations. There are 14 types you're not.
This is true. That's a good point.
It doesn't matter to the world if you're an ENFP or an INFP, but Claire is lovely.
That's a
So
really good point.
it's
Yeah.
only for you to decide
Okay.
if it matters to you, and for you to watch and just think, well, what can I do if I am either one or the other? Is there anything I can do to balance myself out?
Yeah.
That's the question.
Yeah, that's extremely helpful. Thank you so much.
Pleasure. Alex, were you going to say something?
I wrote
In the chat, I identify
sorry.
most with FINISETI, but I've got a stronger version to T or SI. Is there any reason why you have to have this idea that Nathan was saying, where you need to have FI with TE? Like, who's kind of decided that that's the case? And
they're very common patterns. But not everybody fits the common pattern. So decide what your pattern is. Typically, I would say if you have, so can you tell me again what you find, what you're resonating
identifying.
with?
Oh yeah, very strongly with the FI. Quite strongly with SE, but I can't decide whether it's SE or NE. Quite strongly with NI, and quite strongly with TI. But I've known a TI user, and she's really TI. I don't see myself quite that like that.
Yeah.
And then a stronger version to the TE or the SI.
Okay. Okay. All kind of fits in some ways. So if you have a preference for, if you are ISFP, for example, then your stack, your function stack would be FI, SENI. If you are INFP, it's FI, NE, SI. So again, just keep watching yourself. It doesn't totally matter. That the thing that we'll get to sort of towards the end is which are the ones you need to work on. Which are the ones that doesn't occur to you to use. And by the sounds of it, that TE and SI, which is how can I put the work that I want to do out there into the world? I have got the great pleasure and privilege of having a twin sister who's an INFP, and she's a fantastic artist. And I am the one that says, don't keep it to yourself, Nettie. Like, put it out there. Make contacts, because and she has done that now. She's found a way to do that. But that's like, this is something I feel strongly about. How am I going to arrange my life to make sure that actually something happens? And so as an ISFP or an INFP that doesn't use TE that much, it's sort of an encouragement to say, don't hide your light under a bushel. Like, make sure it's out there in the world somewhere. And how can I get hold of that function to help me do it? And also, if SI is not available to you, which it wouldn't be as particularly as an ISFP, then keep trying to go back to what can I recall from the past that might help me do that now? What's my memory from back here that's going to help me in my current situation? Otherwise, you're not learning from what you've done, and you're only looking at the current moment. So giving yourself a 4-letter code is not the point of understanding type. The point of understanding type is really saying, what's available to me naturally? What might I be missing? And how can I grab some of that and put it in my life when I most need it, which is probably when I'm stressed. That makes sense?
Yeah, totally.
Actually, when I'm thinking about the way that you just described TE, I did used to be a lot better at that kind of thing than I am now, like putting myself out there.
It's a lot of it is practice. A lot of it is just confidence that can slip for 1,000 different reasons. And you know, going back to like, yeah, I did it before, which is, you know, that combination of SITE is not helping you say to yourself, well, I did it before, so I can do it again. So it's sort of reaching for those functions to help you if you're in a situation that feels a need to put whatever is your natural gifting out into the world, for sure.
Thank you.
So 2 different ways of experiencing feeling, that F and J collaborating, and that F and P resonating. How does this resonate with me internally? And so we all have feeling in our 4-letter type code somewhere. For me, I've got introverted feeling at the bottom, ENFP, the auxiliary introverted feeling, INFP dominant function, and also ISFP dominant function. So if you resonate clearly with that, Alex, then you're very highly likely to be an IFP. And then for you, Mary, extroverted feeling at that 2nd position. Do you have an understanding, Mary, of that really strong need to be out there helping others? Can you see that in your, even as an auxiliary function? As a dominant function, it goes on steroids, but even as an auxiliary function?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. And there are times when it's absolutely delightful, and there's times when it can just burn you out because you're just trying to do it too much. And then for INTJ, Richard, if you're listening, then that introverted feeling is likely to be more available to you. So activities to apply both. Have a look at these. This is, as the only person with a thinking preference, I can tell you I don't get very far down these lists. So have a go at reading through these and stopping at the one that you wouldn't do. Most of you are going to get quite a long way down because you have a feeling preference in 1 or 2. And if anybody wants to share their thoughts, please do.
I can do the FE number 1, but for me, it would just take up a lot of my time and energy because I will pretty quickly start FIing in addition to the FE. And then I'll start questioning, is that really going to make that person feel welcome? How can I optimize it even further?
Yeah.
Yeah, so just the energy, you know.
And then the FI is just quizzing. Like, do they really want me to? I don't know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Too perfectionistic.
Yeah. But the FE tends to believe that everybody wants them to help them. And there are times when they don't. Or it can become a bit smothering. You know, I used to do a lot of training parents. And there's so many FE dominant parents trying to raise particularly their, you know, their adolescent TI sons. And the adolescent sons are totally rejecting this enormous amount of extroverted feeling that was coming their way. But I love them so much, as I'm sure you do, but just don't say so in the playground. Yeah. Any other thoughts, anybody?
I'm back to thinking my preference is INFP. From everything we've said. I'm back to thinking my overall preference is INFP, having done this.
Okay. INFP, not ENFP. Might be. Yeah. And it's absolutely fine either way.
Yeah.
Or you know, we can toggle. You know, there are times in my life when I'm really upbeat, when it's really going fine, then actually, that extroverted intuiting is out there having fun, doing its thing. And there are other times when, you know, when you're, you know, when is it that you're feeling your best? Any other thoughts when looking through these activities, people? How are you doing, Sandra?
Good. I was just looking at the extroverted feeling, and although I don't think I would consciously do this as an introverted feeler, I think I
Yeah.
am doing it.
Yeah.
Because I am concerned with making people feel that they're welcome, but I'm not necessarily sure I would review each individual person as much as really intuiting how they might
Yeah.
feel comfortable. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I know what you mean. And for me, as you know, extroverted feeling is definitely there, but I do find it very tiring if I'm around it too much.
Mm.
Yeah, you know, there is a point at which, and it will be far sooner than it is for all of you, but there will be a point at which I just go, look, build a bridge and get over it, because really this is just driving me a bit mad. But you know, the same happens for those of you who have a feeling preference, is you can do the thinking stuff really, really well up until a certain point where you then just like going, oh, look, please understand me. You know, this is just, you know, I can't keep doing this tea thing. And that will come sooner than it would for me. Yeah. What else did I have here? Oh, yes. I just started to highlight some of these. Open up to a trusted confidant about how you feel. I think particularly male people with a thinking preference, this is really tough. Women are used to it. Men are not. Women find pleasure in it. You know, we have so many female friends who have a feeling preference. I have a lovely friend who's in the NFP, and I've known her for 30 years, and it took me about 20 of those years, God bless her, she's very patient with me. It took me about 20 of those years for her to realize that she didn't want my advice. She just wanted me to listen. So I kept guessing it. Well, I kept shoulding. Well, Liz, you should do this and you should do that. And if you did this and that, and I had all of these marvelous bits of advice, but she never took, never did any of it until I realized that she didn't want it. She just wanted me to listen. And then on the introverted feeling side, think of times in your life when you felt most at peace. Analyze why that was. That's that thing you were talking about, Nathan. Why am I feeling okay?
Yeah.
Why am I not feeling okay? Both happen.
Yeah. I think the FE number 7 is interesting because in my view, it combines FE and FI components, but the trust component is the FE component. And there have been times where I would meet someone like an NFJ with an NFJ preference, and I would start to open up about my FI and ask them questions about their FI. But there was a sense of like, well, wait, Nathan, we're not that close yet. You know, my FE, they would say, my FE would say, wait, let's get closer first. Let's develop more of a relationship, and then we can get into those deeper FI conversations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're quite right, Nathan. But what will stop an FE from or being troubled by that is, but what's my role? Like, thank you for sharing, but how can I help you? Yeah,
exactly.
You know, they will immediately go to that FE space, that extroverted feelings. Like, you know, I'd love to be able to help, but I don't know if I can.
Yeah, I mean, often I turn to FJs for advice on how to FE. Yeah, so it's like, and I'll say it. I'll be like, I have an FE question. You know, how do I tactfully respond to this person and stuff?
Yeah, I try my best to use extroverted feeling. Most of the emails that I write, I have to go back and add something that sounds a little softer. Yeah. Okay, so again, I sent this to you last week. These are the FE questions. We've already seen those activities that we've just done. How is everyone doing? Where am I most needed locally and globally? What are the collective emotions of the group? Collective emotions of the group. What can I do to build rapport and ensure a positive outcome? Has everyone been considered in the decision-making process? What more can be done to promote a positive personal experience? And the FI, does this course of action resonate with me? Are my personal values being upheld? What is the moral code in this situation? Are my beliefs considered and respected? Can strong values be integrated into the work I do? And what else can be done to defend the rights of others? You will be that sense of justice. You know, you will support the underdog to your dying day. So, is this true for you? Extroverted thinking. We don't have introverted thinkers, but I can assure you it exists. Systemizing, analyzing, harmonizing, valuing. And all of this is going on inside the people who you know. In a meeting, all of this will be happening between all of the people who think very differently. So listen to the questions they're asking, because they will be coming from each of these different places. And which one are you most likely to leave out? So have a think about that and find somebody who can fill in that gap for you. That can also be very helpful. There is something called the Z model, or the Z model, as they call it in the States, which means that you bounce between all of these things to come to a good decision. What's the plan? Have we done a thorough analysis? Have we taken care of the people? And does this feel right? And you can go through that in any question that you've got. Have I used all of these functions to come up with a good solution? So we're at 5 past, but I'll just bring this to a close, but please feel free to stay on and ask any questions. We've just got that in another format, giving you all of the 4-letter codes that are relevant to those, to all of these different functions. And so we're combining it with the perceiving functions: extroverted sensing, introverted sensing, extroverted intuiting, introverted intuiting. Mary, I don't know if you saw the video from last week, but I've changed my extroverted sensing slide. Did you see the video from last week, Mary?
I saw part of it.
Oh, okay. So we had no judgment, by the way. But this extroverted sensing is this beautiful animal just taking in what's around. Can you see this? How he's using that sensing?
Yes.
His ears are alert, the eyes are going, his nose is sniffing. It's more sort of the other one I had was these sort of children jumping in a puddle, which is great, particularly for extroverted sensing. But if you've got for ESTPs and ESFPs, but as an ISFP, this is more what they're doing, for sure.
Mm-hmm. What's the image for introverted sensing? Sue, I don't quite. Oh, the clock.
Introverted sensing, going back and back and back into my memory.
Got it.
What have I learned before? Back and back and back and back and back. What do I remember? What's going to help me from my past that's going to help me now? And so there we have it, our 8 Jungian cognitive functions. So for you wonderful ENFPs, you're using this extroverted intuiting. What are the possibilities? Combined with, does this sound right? For INFPs, works exactly the same way, but this introverted feeling, the introverted feeling comes first. For me, as extroverted thinking, this is where I'm getting my information from, introverted sensing. And this is what I'm doing with it. I'm putting it out into the world. What can I build? What can I construct? For where else do we have? Let's imagine that Richard is still with us. And he has introverted intuiting, that vision. What is the video going to look like? I can see it's going to look like this. And this is my strategy I'm going to put out there. INTJ. I've got a vision. I'm going to put it out there. Extremely good at strategic thinking. Extremely good. And for you, Mary, you've got introverted intuiting. What is what am I looking forward for? What is that visioning forward? And how can I bring other people with me in a collaborative way to make that work? And that's how you put them together. So your superpower, or your superpowers, you have many of them, tend to be your dominant, your lead function, and your auxiliary, your support functions. So just in summary, there are two competing directions of energy for each of the functions: outwards and inwards, extroverted and introverted, extrinsic and intrinsic. They can be used sequentially, but not easily simultaneously. We have a natural preference for each of the functions. We all use all of them to a greater or lesser extent, but ultimately this combination of preferred functions, one perceiving function and one judging function, for example, TE and SI for me, or NE and FI for ENFP, gives us our 4-letter code. And this is the brilliance of Isabel Myers. She really took Jung's theory and put it into something that we could understand. And she never, ever left Jung behind, which is what is often the criticism. So it is also the reason why good type descriptions can be very accurate, because they will always be describing these cognitive patterns. But this is where we started from, the Myers-Briggs functions, but we can get behind that to see the others. And why would we bother doing all of this, as we said on the first section, for all of these marvelous reasons? So it's a personal development system. It is not a labeling system. It doesn't matter if you have a 4-letter code that you just think, yeah, this is definitely me, or if you can't decide between two, Alex and Claire, it doesn't matter. What it does help you do is to understand what's missing and to fill in the blanks. And there we go. The BAPT type refresher, parts 1, 2, and 3, done, tick. You've got the recordings that you can go back to again and again and again if you ever need to. I will send you the summary, and honestly, anything else you need that you think you need to develop your knowledge or to understand this further, please just help. Just
So good of you to do this, Sue.
What was that, Claire?
So good of you to do this.
Oh, you're very welcome. I enjoy it. I love it. It's something that has really helped me in my life so incredibly. I can only tell you I use it every single day. And I'm so keen to help other people get to understand this amazing theory. There are many, many other theories that are just as useful, but just don't leave this one out, in my IMHO, as they say, in my humble opinion. So thank you for joining us. Nathan, can you just